Hey folks, it's Mark and Bob with Fire Mountain Outdoors, and we're here for 1-800-GUNS and Ammo. We're going to be talking about something really cool today.
That's right. We're going to be taking a look at value price scopes. We're going to be talking about mid-range scopes. We're going to be talking about the high-end scopes. Which one's going to be best for you? Stick around and we'll find out.
All right, folks, we're going all high-tech on you. We're going PowerPoint in the barn. As you can see, we got some paper up here.
So we've got price and we've got performance, and we're going to find where these intersect on this line to find out which is going to give you the best bang for the buck.
That's right. So here on our performance line, as we progress down here, we're gonna increase our performance in optical clarity, in light gathering capability, in a perfectly flat from side to side field of view. We're going to get some better eye relief. We're going to be able to see things clearer, and that comes at a cost, doesn't it? As those things go, if we look at this line here, we can see that as our performance increases, typically so does our price.
Yeah, so many purchasers, I'm one of them, if I'm going to start out looking for a scope, I'm not looking at that right there. I'm looking at the price.
That's right.
I've seen how that goes up, but we're going to show you how these two can coordinate together.
We've got some cutoff lines that we talked about right here. We're going to call this $100. And that will go clear across there. And then we're going to step up to about $200. And then we're going to go...
Let's go 4 to 6.
$400. And then up here we've got another line here. We're going to put that 600 there. And then we have got the big dollar stuff, and that's over $1,000 up there. So each of us are going to have a little line. You can't spend more than you've got. So we're really kind of limited by that. That really does drive what we're doing. We have a lot of desires in what we want,
but we're going to be limited by what we can take out of our pocket.
That's right. So we're just going to be taking a look in this little video. This video we're just talking about magnified optics, and we're gonna look at some different scopes at these different price points, and we can look and see what we can expect to see in performance gains from a sub $100 cheapy optic on up to these little individual items. We're going to mount these up on the OptiView Agubitron 2000, a little optics mount that we have set up for our camera. And we're just going to look through these and share with you what we look for in an optic and let you know what you can expect at these different price ranges. So let's mount up the camera and
mount it up and
take a look. All right.
Well, Bob, I've got the crummiest scope that I could find in the collection mounted right on here. This is I'm not going to disparage any company or names, but this is a scope that was rebranded by a large retailer, and they put their own name brand on it. This is a very economy scope. It was made in China. This would be representative of your sub $100 scope.
Right, something you can go to Walmart, you can go to any of your big box stores and buy something off the shelf that isn't held behind glass, it's not under security, probably comes in a blister pack.
Exactly. So this would be something that you would likely be considering to mount on an air gun or a cheap 22 or something. As you can see here in the viewfinder, we've got a significant glare that's up around the top of it. What you can't see is I can actually see all the internal workings of the scope when you're looking down in it, which is weird because none of my other scopes are like that. But you can see the threads and the mechanisms and everything inside it when you're looking inside and look to the periphery.
You made mention of you thought you were looking through it backwards at first, and I noticed the same exact thing.
So the definition side to side, it's really blurry around the edges. It's dim. It's kind of hard to tell and to convey how dim it is in gathering light in compared to the others, because the camera kind of accommodates for that. The contrast between the day and night, you know, you can kind of just see that it's either or. We can't pick up a lot of subtle different variations in color or shades.
There's a lot of highlights, there's a lot of contrast, but there isn't a lot of mid-tone.
Here, if we're so we're on the 2 power right now, we're going to dial it on up to the 7 power, and we're going to focus a little bit here.
You can better really see how the edges really blur out on that.
That's right. So if you look at the definition of the leaves and the fine details around the edges, you can see how out of focus that they are. And if we go over to George, our man-sized target, you can see there's you know, we do have a little bit of a bright background, but the crosshairs get lost easily in there. That's really what we're looking at with a bargain basement cheap scope. And some of it's hard to convey through the screen, but it almost makes you tired to look at this.
No, it does make your eyes tired looking through it, and it'll make you blink when you take your eyes off of it. Just kind of a, you know, when you look at the aesthetics of a scope, it's a good looking scope. It looks like it's made to really be a good tactical scope. It's got some nice turrets for changing your elevation and windage, but there is just nothing about this scope when you look through it that makes you want to look through it a second time.
Well, let's step up to a nicer scope by a name brand manufacturer.
Let's do it. Okay, now we're taking a look at another brand name scope. This is probably their entry-level scope. This is a 2.175 to 5 power scope. And at first glance, you're going to notice that your colors are a lot brighter. You have more contrast. And you really start to think that, hey, for this kind of price, which is going to be kind of in your sub 200 category, that you're getting something that might actually work. But what we notice, so like when we're focused here on George, we're going to start to turn up our magnification. And as we do that, you're going to start to notice that your edges start to darken up a bit. You're getting some blurriness. Now, if you notice like the trees on the left and right of George here, you are getting a lot of distortion. It's almost like he's moving towards you. But as you back that off, stuff starts to clear up a bit. But you're still going to notice there's a whole lot of kind of fisheye effect. There's a whole lot of focus on the center of this reticle. And as we get further out, it starts to haze up. But, you know, that's a sacrifice that this company had to make when they were trying to figure out, you know, between the quality and the value, what we're going to get there. And if I was running this optic primarily down at like the 2.175 setting, I would probably consider this a pretty nice optic. But then again, as we start to increase the magnification on it, that's when stuff starts to go wonky.
All right, Bob, here's about the time that I think we're going to start naming some names here. This is
the Nikon Pro Staff.
That's right. You know, this is about $160 scope, and this has always kind of been this particular line by Nikon has always been a good intersection for me. It's a $160 scope. It's not a premium top of the line scope, but it's always seemed like that a good value for that $160 in this 3-to-9 scope. We've got a bullet drop compensating reticle. We've got some good clarity, clear to the edges, good eye relief, good field of view, good color transmission. We're at the 3 power now. We're gonna zoom on into a 9 power setting on old George.
Now this is the kind of optic, you know, if you're if you've got a value priced bolt action rifle, it's going to work good in the field for you. You know, I've run these on 1022s, I've run these on AR-15s. You know, it's you know, you get quite a bit when you buy a pro staff for the amount of money that you're spending.
Well, that's right. You know, and if you're like me and you end up getting more rifles than you do optics, you can't afford to put the best on every single one. So you end up triaging your optics. And sometimes for that second particular firearm, or third or 10th or 15th or whatever, I think that I love having these scopes on, because having them in the safe, because it's a good optic, and I've used them for hunting and out in the field, and they're rugged. I mean, it's just got pretty good glass. It's $160. It's miles and miles ahead of the $100 one. It's the best $60 you can ever spend, is to step up to something that has this level of quality versus just wasting that $100 on junk, you know.
So many times we get asked, what is the best scope you can get for under $200? And in the $160 range, this one really is one to consider.
The color's good, crisp, clear to the edges. You know, it's not the brightest glass. If you compare this to some of the other ones in a low light setting, you'll notice that it doesn't transmit the light the best. But that's what $160 or so from a name brand entry level scope. You would expect to see the same thing from, say, the Leupold Rifleman series or the VX1. Any of the name brands that are in that similar price category.
You don't get a lot of distortion. You'll notice at the extreme edges you will get a little bit, but you're going to expect that. And that's miles above the 2.175 to 5 power scope that we looked at just a few minutes ago. And this actual optic you can get for less money.
What we have here, Bob, is what I consider to be the intersection for me for great glass at an affordable price, made by a manufacturer that's got a great reputation and stands behind their product. We're looking through the Leupold VX3 3.5 to 10 by 50 right now. I run one of these on my hunting rifle, and so does my son.
And so do I. This is on my 300 Winchester Magnum as well.
So FMO, the trifecta approved. This is a great intersection. They cost about $550 retail, but I think it's the nexus of all of the things that we want. It hits that point. You know, 550 is not chump change, but it's great glass. I've got more of my game animals using Leupold products than anything else, and the VX3 line is great for low light transmission. We don't have a great example of it today where we're at here. The beauty of it is it's almost like turning on a flashlight.
It is. You know, you get that extra half hour, you know, when you're in the dawn hours, or probably 15 minutes anyway, versus, you know, scopes that don't have that coating that this particular scope does have.
Right, it picks up the light. You know, with your bare eye, you could just distinguish that it was an animal. You throw the scope up and put it to your shoulder. You can determine that it's a legal animal, how many points it has, what its size is. There's just a night and day difference. I 100% wholeheartedly endorse this line for hunting, and they've got a great reputation, and they've always stood behind their product if I've ever had an issue. Leupold's always done well. They're made right here in the Pacific Northwest. It's great stuff. We're on the 3.5 power setting. We're gonna zoom in and pick out some fine details on George there.
You know, I bought my VariX3 back in 1991. I mowed a lot of yards to be able to buy that particular scope. But here it is, 26 years later, 25 years later. I do not need to replace this scope. It's every bit as good as it was 24, 25 years ago as it is today. And if anything ever does go wrong with it, I know that the folks at Leupold are going to help me out.
That's right. I got my first elk using a VX3 2.5 to 8, and I still have that scope, and it still does well.
And that's fun that you mentioned that, because my very first animals I ever took, my first blacktail and my first elk were both taken with the Leupold Very X3s.
So we're looking at a clear cut that's about 3 miles away as the crow flies, and looking through this glass, we would, if this was a telescope or a spotting scope, we would be able to pick out our animals. It's just got great clarity out to long distances.
Well, folks, we got to look at some different scopes and look through some varying levels of quality.
Yeah, we started with your basic run-of-the-mill, off-the-shelf Walmart type scopes. The sub $100 series, which you can pretty much just discredit altogether.
Let's talk about that. So we got the $100 mark there, Bob. Underneath that line, I pretty much consider it a discard. You shouldn't even really be considering that, folks. That line right there is, you're basically throwing your money away. Typically, it would be really hard to make a good, reliable, accurate, repeatable, clear scope.
If you're considering something under the $100 level, save that money for ammo.
That's right. Use your open sights. You're just going to be disappointed, and that scope will end up like the one that I have in the back of the safe and rattled around, and you'll be trying to give it to somebody at some point, and you
they're
won't
not
be
going to
able to
want to take it.
Right. So if you're thinking about under $100 scope, that's the save your money line. We get up here to the $200 range.
Now we're getting into something interesting.
That's right. There's a plethora of entry-level scopes by a bunch of different manufacturers. We looked through that Nikon ProStaff. I've been a big fan of that. I've never been the biggest Nikon fan up above this point.
Right.
But they do really well right here.
$169 to $200, depending on where you find it on sale. This is a fantastic value.
This ProStaff scope, I have 2 of them, and I keep those around because they're a great intermediate scope. They're well worth mounting on anything to get you by, or it might be that 3rd or 4th rifle or something. At this level, the Redfields, what is it? The Redfield Rampages or
something like that. We'll have to research that, and you'll see that name pop up down here.
You've got the Leupold, the Rifleman. They start in this $100 to $200 range. You can get some scopes from some great manufacturers. And the cool thing is those manufacturers have their name on the line. So, and they also have the skill and the technology and the reputation that they're going to want to build a decent scope. So if they're going to put their name on it, it's going to be something.
They're going to stand behind it.
Right.
And they're probably going to offer you some sort of warranty.
That's right.
And you know what? It's always going to be worth $100 or so more dollars. You're
Right.
not going to lose your shirt on it.
Exactly. I mean, you could sell this for $100. You paid $160 for it, but if you went to sell it, you can easily get $100 for it.
Easy.
So you've only lost your $60.
Think of it as a rental fee.
That's right. So there's a lot of values right in here in the $100 to $200 range, and it gets incremental there. Once you get closer to that $200 range, the competition gets a little bit thicker. But the features come on,
right?
And this is also a great range for some of these other scopes to drop down into the price when they come on sale. You might
Right.
see a $300 scope that's on a clearance sale that's going to drop it down into that $200 range. So don't waste a couple of these on a couple of crap scopes at $100. You're going to operate up in the $160 range, and you can get some good stuff.
Yeah, and watch your sales over at 1-800-gunsandammo.com, because sometimes you might see that $200 scope dip down closer to this level.
That's right. Now, from your $200 scope, now let's talk about the performance items that we were talking about. So you've got optical clarity, you've got mechanical repeatability, you have weather tightness, you got durability. Those are things that all come with that. Light gathering ability, you know, like I said, with that Leupold, with
that special lens coating, you're
That's
going to
right.
be able to hunt longer than your buddies without the lens coating.
and all that glass costs money to make, and fine glass is more expensive than cheap glass. So once you start getting up into this range, up above $200 to that point right there, that $550 point where that VX3 is, that's the intersection for me. That's the intersection, and I always try and get them when they're on sale. So I actually cheat this curve a little bit, and that's where you can cheat the curve. You don't cheat the curve by just looking at this. You cheat the curve by getting something that's great when it's on sale. And a lot of times the manufacturers will change something,
Right.
and they're going to close this out. Right here, I have a Leupold Vari-X 3 that I got my first elk with in 1984. This glass is still stellar. This thing has been beat up. This particular scope is still in manufacture in this configuration, but a lot of times they'll have something that they change or update, or they phase out a coating or a finish or something. They'll still have the factory warranty, but as they phase it out,
The glass is the same.
glass is the same, and it goes on sale. So that's a great way for you to cheat that curve and save you some money and move your intersection point further over on the feature side instead of going up the cost curve.
Right.
Once you get up above $600 to $1,000, for me, the gains, for me, it's the kind of past the point of diminishing returns.
Right.
Because I see the gains over that VX3 that I swear by and live by and use, I see those to be infinitesimal, but they come at a great expense.
Big time. When you want something that's going to have repeatability and you want higher durability, that's when you're going to see the 600 to 2000 skyrocket.
That's true. You know, and those scopes, once you get above the $1,000 range, then we're talking Night Force and Schmidt and Bender. We're talking about a lot of stuff that really appeals to the long range guys.
Right.
And there, the gains in the glass and the clarity aren't really where all the stuff is. It's all in the repeatability. Because you know what? This scope, this Leupold VX2 or VX3, once it's zeroed in, I never touch the turrets. I mean, it's solid and it's locked. And I may adjust with Kentucky windage or a little bit of holdover. I hold right at the spine, or just a little bit over its back. You know, really high tech kind of.
High tech Kentucky windage.
Exactly. But those guys, they need to be able to move that thing 100 clicks on 142, and when they move it back to be in the exact same spot. And that repeatability, that fine clockwork mechanism in there, that's where the money comes in.
Right. You're talking a whole different level of precision workmanship when you're working on those innards of adjusting that reticle. I mean, we're talking big time, excellent, cool stuff.
Yep. So, but for my shooting and what I do, that's my sweet spot.
Right.
That's where it gets done, and it's well worth it. And it's about, a lot of times it's about what you're going to pay for the rifle. The adage used to be that you would pay
$1 per dollar you're going to spend on a bolt action rifle.
right. And that may or may not hold true. You know, I've got that Ruger American Ranch. I got that rifle. It's $360.
And it deserves something a little bit better than a $360 scope.
Exactly. I've got a right at $500 scope on it. Conversely, I have some ARs that cost me $700 or $800, and I'm running a lower price at like a $200 optic on those.
Right.
Just because that kind of jives. So that's something that each individual is going to have to decide where their intersection is and what their price point is and what their particular rule of thumb would be.
So the question for you folks out there is, where is your intersection?
I think we showed you some great examples just looking through what $100 scope gives you and why you're really just kind of throwing your money away, and you should just stick with iron sights. Some great values that you can get under $200, and then we look through some great glass that's in the $500 range. Hey, I hope that being able to look through the optics with us and being able to see the difference between throwaway sub $100 scope and some great mid-range prices, and then what my personal intersection of price and quality is with the VX3 line.
Yours?
Oh, okay.
Ours?
Ours. I hope that we were able to show that to you, and that this was enlightening and entertaining.
And hopefully a little bit insightful. So, and a little bit educational at the same time.
A little bit.
A little bit. But anyway, folks, make sure you check out 1-800-GUNSANDAMMO.com. If you're looking for scopes on this range, you know, they do offer some of the stuff in the $100 range that you or I may not be adding to our safe, but perhaps you have something that you need to stick to, and you might be looking in that area. But if you can, and if you have it in the budget, we highly recommend going above and beyond that.
That's right. There's great stuff out there. As always, thanks for watching. Be safe. Be safe out on the firing line, and like and subscribe.
Thanks for watching.